In a cramped apartment in Minneapolis, a young man with a second-hand guitar and a head full of poetry stayed up all night listening to scratchy blues records and Woody Guthrie radio broadcasts. He wasn't trying to become famous, he was chasing something deeper. Truth wrapped in melody, rebellion dressed in rhyme. That young man was Bob Dylan, and his journey from a quiet Minnesota town to the global stage would not only redefine folk and rock music, but reshape how generations understood protest, love, faith, and identity. More than a singer, he became a mirror for his times, and a mystery that refused to be solved. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman on May 24, 1941, in Duluth, Minnesota, Dylan grew up in the iron mining town of Hibbing, where winters were long and dreams often froze before they could take root. His father ran an appliance store, and his family belonged to a small Jewish community that valued education and tradition. Yet from an early age, Robert felt drawn to the raw, untamed voices of American music, Hank Williams' lonesome yodels, Little Richard's electric screams, and above all, Woody Guthrie's Dust Bowl ballads about workers, drifters, and justice. At 17, he taught himself piano and harmonica, formed high school bands, and began performing at local cafes under borrowed names like Elston Gunn. In 1959, he enrolled at the University of Minnesota, but rarely attended classes. Instead, he haunted the Dinkertown folk scene, playing for tips and absorbing every song he could. It was there he adopted the name Bob Dylan, inspired by poet Dylan Thomas, though he later claimed it just sounded right. He dropped out after 1 year and hitchhiked to New York City in January 1961, carrying little more than a notebook, a guitar, and a mission. To meet his hero, Woody Guthrie, who was dying in a New Jersey hospital. Dylan visited him weekly, playing songs at his bedside, absorbing not just technique, but ethos, the idea that music could be a weapon for the voiceless. His big break came later that year when he was invited to perform at Gerd's Folk City. A glowing review in the New York Times called him a bright new face in folk music, and soon he signed with Columbia Records. His self-titled debut album, 1962, featured traditional folk tunes, but his second, The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, 1963, exploded with original songs that fused poetic imagery with urgent social commentary. Tracks like Blowin' in the Wind and A Hard Rain's A Gonna Fall became anthems of the civil rights and anti-war movements. Though only 22, Dylan spoke with the weight of a prophet, asking questions no politician dared answer. Yet he resisted being labeled a protest singer. When fans demanded he lead marches or write slogans, he grew restless. Art, to him, was not propaganda, it was exploration. In 1965, at the Newport Folk Festival, he shocked purists by plugging in an electric guitar and launching into rock-infused songs like a Rolling Stone. Booed by folk traditionalists, he walked off stage, but never looked back. Albums like Highway 61 Revisited and Blonde on Blonde redefined what popular music could say, blending surreal lyrics, blues structures, and streetwise wit. Critics called it genius, audiences were divided. But a new generation heard themselves in his chaos. His life mirrored his art, unpredictable, layered, elusive. After a mysterious motorcycle accident in 1966, he retreated from touring for nearly 8 years, recording intimate, country-tinged albums like John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline with his wife Sarah and their growing family. He explored biblical themes, domestic love, and spiritual doubt, refusing to repeat past formulas. In the late 1970s, following a near-fatal health scare and a deep personal crisis, he embraced Christianity, releasing 3 gospel albums that baffled fans, but revealed his lifelong search for meaning. He never stayed in one place, spiritually or artistically. By the 1980s, he drifted through musical styles, from blues to jazz to orchestral ballads, often dismissed as past his prime. Yet in 1997, he stunned the world with Time Out of Mind, a haunting meditation on mortality produced by Daniel Lanois. It won 3 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, and marked a creative rebirth. Over the next 2 decades, he released a string of critically acclaimed works, Love and Theft, Modern Times, Rough and Rowdy Ways, proving that his voice, both literal and literary, remained vital. Beyond music, Dylan reshaped culture. He turned songwriting into literature, influencing novelists, poets, and filmmakers. In 2016, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, the first musician ever to receive it, for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. Though he initially ignored the honor, he later accepted it quietly, reinforcing his lifelong disdain for ceremony over substance. He also gave back in subtle ways. Through the Hibbing High School Scholarship Fund, he has anonymously supported students in his hometown for decades. He donated proceeds from rare recordings to food banks and disaster relief. In 2020, during the pandemic, he released Murder Most Foul, a 17-minute reflection on national trauma and cultural memory, offering listeners a space to grieve and reflect. Now in his 80s, Dylan rarely gives interviews or explains his work. He tours selectively, performs old songs in radically new arrangements, and guards his privacy fiercely. He paints, writes prose, and continues to record, not for charts, but for the craft itself. His legacy is not in hits or headlines, but in the millions who learn to question authority, cherish language, and find beauty in ambiguity because of a voice that once sang, "The answer, my friend, is blowin' in the wind." Bob Dylan never gave easy answers. He gave better questions. And in doing so, he changed not just music, but the soul of a century.